Hello there and welcome back. So today I'm going to be going over Jurassic World. This was released in 2015 and it was the kind of reboot of the series because it was a new take on the franchise. Back at the time, we didn't know if it acknowledged the second and third movies. We didn't know if it was a direct continuation after this the first Jurassic Park. This was a really significant movie for me. I grew up with the original three my entire life. My grandpa actually took a couple of his kids to see the first one when it came out in 1993, and so it's just been a whole thing for our family. And I remember getting to go see this in theaters, and it blew my mind that day, and it was incredible and amazing and exciting, and I saw it with my dad and my grandpa, and we saw it in 3D. And it was mind-blowing. I'd never seen something like that. It was great to be able to see the park open and running and so beautiful. With that being said, let's review Jurassic World. I remember we open up the movie and it's on the Indominus Rex, and there's two eggs. And I thought that was such an interesting aspect. We go over in it later the movie that she ate the sibling whenever they were growing up. But she ends up being able to hide her body heat and breaks out of the cage. She made it look like she had marked up the wall. And Owen was like, she's an intelligent animal. She created a distraction. Like, she wanted us to think that something was happening that wasn't, so that she could, plan her escape. And, while all of that is happening, the kids are seeing the park for the first time, and we get the beautiful zoom and the fantastic music, and we get to see the Mosasaurus and the show for that, and that was really, really awesome to be able to see, Jon Hammonds' vision to life. And I think that's really what was like the entire point of this movie, and why it wasn't Jurassic Park 4, because if Jurassic Park 4 would have been another, something happening back on the island, people go there, this whole, disaster aftermath thing, I don't know, it kind of maybe would have gotten a little tired, because we did that twice already, and so I just I don't know, there was 12 or 13 years or maybe a little more after Jurassic Park 3, because there was nothing, there was nowhere to go with the franchise. And so I think the semi reboot that they did was a very, very good job in turning the world around and upping the wow factor, and just it feels so much more close to the original Jurassic Park, because the second and third don't have the same kind of theme elements, and this one does. It's done in a way that's so well that it feels like a continuation of the first one, not a copy, because that one was trying to get the park up and running, and this one has already been running. So they feel like a very good, two sides of the same quarter, very similar stories, but it's not the same thing being retold. It's its very own story in the same way, and I like that about this movie. I also really love the characters. I think Owen Grady is an amazing raptor hunter. He's training them, and he's so adorable with the raptors, and Blue is by far the cutest velociraptor. I always loved them whenever I was younger, and I wanted one as a pet, and so I think everybody did. So having this movie come around and being them able to make them trainable, and just I love the whole aspect of it. And in the sequel to Jurassic World, we figure out that Blue is from a different type of breed than the other three raptors are. She has more empathy and human abilities and traits and thinking skills, and so that's why she's able to relate to Owen more, and they have more of a relationship. It's not conveyed as strongly in this one, and so it's it can be kind of why was it just trying to kill them a second ago, and now it's all it's his pet. But they do explain that a little bit. But before any of that happens, he saves the guy from falling into the paddock, and they almost get him, and he's got to do the whole thing. I remember that being the opening of the trailers, and everyone just being so amazed by that. And then seeing the scene in the movie is actually very different, and I thought that was a really good way of choice style of editing, because you could have shown the scene as was in the trailer, but I like the way that they did that. When Owen and Claire come together to inspect the cage is whenever everything goes wrong, because he's telling her about animals in captivity, and that's when it pulls the thermal sensing trick, and then it breaks out of the door. I just remember first of all, Claire is such a clean, put together character, and Bryce Dallas Howard plays her so well, and she's so very beautiful. I just remember her like acting and her screaming like really affecting me, like when she was like, we have an acid out of containment, like this is not a drill, like put ACU on alert. It was just so good to me, that like people really go for it in this movie, and there's such a heightened extent of events because there's so many more people involved with this one and so many more deaths that can happen, and innocent women and children and men and lives and families and just destruction. It's all happening. It's a perfect storm of a movie. I really like the brother aspect as well. It was cool to be able to do the callback to the first one with the kids, and I just thought that it was really cool because you can see the older one kind of like not being interested at the beginning and kind of being like a teen, but then he gets into it or whatever and he starts having fun with his brother. They go off and they accidentally stumble upon the Indominus Rex, and it plays with their little gyrosphere and knocks them around and kills the other dinosaurs around them, and it's a very good tribute and an homage to the car scene from the first Jurassic Park, because there's so many similarities in the callbacks with like just like the glass and the peering over and the biting of it and the falling out. And then also within like the same way, whenever they go to run out of the ball and out of the woods, that's kind of like a callback to Jurassic Park 3 when the Spinosaurus comes like chasing after them. I don't know, this movie is just so good at doing a little what are those called, tributes, homages, callbacks, little, I've said those a bunch now, but like, yeah, it's really good at doing that, fan servicing little Easter eggs and stuff and sprinkling them out throughout the story. I just remember being so fascinated by Claire's character and thinking that she was very fun to be able to watch, and I still love her very much whenever I watch it around this time. This movie is also very funny too. It is a great family film, and I love the part wherever he's like, you won't last a second out there, and she just like unbuckles her shirt and zips it down and ties it up, and he's like, he's confused, and she's like, this means I'm ready to go. Like, and I just started laughing because it's so funny because like I totally got what it meant. Like I watched her do her whole thing and I was like, all right, you know, like she's ready, and it was just perfect humor. They put it in the right places in this movie, and it definitely doesn't feel forced ever, and I really like that. From there, this is pretty much the snowball effect of one thing after another happening over and over and over again. I mean, the dinosaur goes from one place to the next, and the ACU tries to capture it quietly. That doesn't happen. It kills almost all of those men. Then they start chasing it to like the bird aviary, and it breaks into there, and that obviously goes very wrong because all of the birds escape, and while that's happening, the kids are just now stumbling onto the first visitor center from the first Jurassic Park movie, and I really loved this, especially when I saw it the first time. I teared up because I'd always wanted to know what happened after Jurassic Park, and I think I've said this in some other movies, but I love aftermaths and ruins of like traumatic places, and to see it is so like sad and iconic, and watching them step in there and us, the audience, knowing like what happened, the most iconic ending ever, like Jurassic Park, and there's the whole ending of that movie was the biggest thing ever. And so like watching them come back to it, you know, we don't see that in the second and the third one. We see other InGen buildings that are run down, but we see the poster on the ground. It's like when dinosaurs ruled the earth, and they're walking through it back, and he puts his hand on the wall and kind of like touches the Velociraptor painting, and it's like, who didn't want to do that, you know, whenever you were seeing Jurassic Park the first time? And so I just really liked that little moment there, because whenever I was watching this scene for the first time, I thought like, oh man, I just want to touch it too. Like, it's just, whoa bro, like it's so sad, just like the ruins, the potential, everything about that. To see huge like chaos, that's one of the ones that was worked for The Lost World when the dinosaurs in San Diego. I love seeing like huge crowds of people just like freaking out and like dealing with this, because it's like, it's like, what would you do? I mean, literally, I love terrifying events because it's a good way of coping and understanding and watching, and it's just so entertaining. Seeing the birds peck at people and pick them up and drop them off, and all of the things that are getting smashed, and it just shows you like how quickly life changes and how quickly things can become bad, and like what chaos and panic and disaster does. And they want to use the raptors as the weapons to be able to take down the Indominus. Like, that's never been done before. We have never had them out in the field. You are not releasing raptors onto this island. Sidebar, the moment when Chris Pratt's character punches that guy out, best part, because I mean, we all wanted to hit that guy, dude. I mean, anyway, so that triggers one of the coolest parts of the moment. And that was the poster for the movie. It was when he's on the motorcycle in the forest, like riding alongside of the velociraptors. I mean, who was more of a badass, or like, what was more of a badass moment? Like, there wasn't. You can't tell me there was. Well, I mean, there is, but you know what I'm saying. Whenever the Indominus turns on them and they're communicating and they start taking all of the men out one by one, and we see that on the little computer screens. To me, that gives me flashbacks and callbacks of the movie Aliens, like if you've ever seen that. The second one where they send like the military in and they're watching all of the deaths happen, and like the way that the xenomorphs are grabbing people. Anyway, it seems like a lot of similarity there is whenever I was watching that. And so I love that. That's something that I like about this too. So this is a really great movie, but my favorite part of it is the ending. Just like with Jurassic Park, my favorite is the ending. I mean, I literally don't understand how they were able to pull off another great, like, to me this is just as iconic as the first Jurassic Park. The running up the stairs and into the lab, and then the velociraptor gets them and it smashes through the glass and they gotta run back, and they're outside and they're cornered, and the one comes up, and then the second and the third. And I felt like I did when I watched the first one again, and I loved that feeling. I love that they were able to recreate that. I can't imagine how many people worked hard on this movie to be able to pull this off. Like, they really went all out for this one, and it paid off 100%, and they did well by giving it this script and this budget and this treatment, and I'm just super proud of this movie because I love the face-off between the Indominus Rex and the Velociraptors. Watching the people be caught in that is so gut-wrenching and horrifying. You feel so helpless and little, and I don't even know how I would react if that was happening in front of me. And obviously things start to get very dark, and the guy says, we need more teeth, and so his aunt goes to lure the T-Rex out, and that was so awesome because I'd almost forgotten about the T-Rex at this point in the movie. And that's kind of a good thing because, you know, it doesn't leave me bored enough that I'm like, boy, I wish a T-Rex was here. You know, at least it was like intricate enough that I didn't really notice almost that it was missing. But I think they brought it back very well at the end, and it was such a great homage that it's the original T-Rex from the first one, defending her territory and going head-to-head with the Indominus and watching her almost get her ass whooped, and then Blue comes back and helps with the fight. After that point, like, the T-Rex starts dragging the Indominus Rex. Like, she's pissed. Like, she's, like, biting on the head and, like, throwing and ripping it around. And she throws it into the gate, and I never noticed this before, but like after a while I did, but the Indominus's tail is like hanging over the edge, and that is what entices the Mosasaurus to come up and clamp it and bite it and take it down at the end. And it was just such a good finale, a way to make these creatures like fight each other, but like fight for each other, and just the whole spinning of the situation and the stress levels of everything. I think it was a very complex and beautiful and epic finale of this movie, and it couldn't have gone more perfectly. I thought that it was intense, and it gave me goosebumps, and I love it, you know, still this much to this day. I just remember feeling so happy and like astonished, and just my whole world changed. And the summer that this was coming out, my whole summer was about Jurassic World. I mean, everyone was talking about it. Where I lived in Ohio, we had Dairy Queen, and there was Jurassic World ice cream cups, and everybody was trying to get the different cups and which ones are rare. And they had a special Jurassic World Blizzard, which was delicious. And I just remember everybody freaking out about this movie because everybody loved dinosaurs and nobody was embarrassed to like admit it. We were all just like so like excited for the hype. This is the DVD that I have, so I remember whenever it was released in stores, my grandpa got like several copies of it because he was like, there's no reason why we shouldn't have this. And it's just the basic DVD, this version, but like I've said before, I love physical copies of things, and it's just a great movie to have in your collection, and the back artwork is beautiful. But anyway, yeah, that was my review for Jurassic World. I really love this one. It was the only one that I got to see in theaters, and so it was really super special to me. So let me know how old you were when you saw the first one, Jurassic Park, in theaters, or if you only ever saw Jurassic World in theaters, how old were you, or if you've seen both. I remember I was 17 in 2015 when this came out. But make sure that you check out some of my other videos. I've done a bunch of different genres, and make sure to stay tuned and check back. Alright, thanks. Bye.